what the technology has done to the business is enabled firms like ours to be able to play on an equal playing field. So it enables people to be able to have firms like ours where it's based strictly on the skill and experience you have in doing investment banking and not necessarily on how big is your balance sheet to be able to employ or identify and utilize the resources you need to get the information you have to have.
Hey, hi all. Welcome to another session of Investment Industry Decoded, the interview podcast series we are doing with investment bankers from the North American region. Now, today I'm joined by Mr. Richard Kestenbaum, who is the co-founder and partner at Triangle Capital. Richard is an experienced investment banker with more than 35 years in the industry, advising on M&A and corporate finance, particularly in the retail and the consumer sectors. He's also a Forbes contributor and a widely recognized voice on trends shaping the future of retail and consumer businesses. Thanks for taking your time, Richard. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I have a couple of questions, certain questions for you. So first, I want to understand your background, how you came into investment banking, and your story.
So I've been an investment banker my entire career. I went to Wall Street right after business school, and I was, the most junior person you could be. And eventually I wound up becoming a partner at a firm called Drexel Burnham Lambert. And I became very focused on middle market mergers and acquisitions. And you'd interpret that as transactions today between 25 and 300 million. Some people will start in a somewhat wider range, but that's generally the range of transactions we work in. And for almost all my career, I've been involved with sales of companies, what's called on Wall Street exclusive sales, and where we are engaged to represent the seller of a company on an exclusive basis. That is to say, we are their only representative. If they do a deal, they pay us a fee in middle market transactions. And for most of my career, I've been focused on consumer and retail. And that has enabled us to learn a lot about those industries so that we can be more helpful as bankers. So I became a partner at Drexel Burnham. That firm went out of business, and I joined a boutique firm called Financo, and I was there for a bunch of years. And then 20 years ago, I co-started our firm Triangle Capital, and we do sell-side M&A in exactly as I've been describing, in transactions between 25 and 300 million dollars. Most of our clients are companies that are run by founders, and very often the founder or their original shareholder group controls the company, and we help them do this transaction that is typically the most important transaction they've ever done. And that's our business.
That's very interesting, Richard. I'm sure you have worked on a lot of transactions your entire career. So I want to understand, is there a particular deal, one or two deals which stand out memorable for you for certain reasons?
Well, the amazing thing about this business is if you like helping people and learning things, you can enjoy this business every day. And so even though, there are some days I say to myself, I wish I could stop learning. I just want to know everything. But that day never comes, and I learn something from every transaction I do. And so the answer to your question is, there isn't one that stands out. There are plenty of companies, a lot of times people like to talk about companies that are well-known or famous, and we've sold companies to Amazon and L'Oreal and PetSmart and lots of well-known companies, and so you like to talk about that. But the reality is I learn something from every transaction I do. I find myself quoting my clients or quoting my experiences and what I've learned in these transactions. And you never stop learning in the process. And that is a great deal of the answer to the question of how can you do the same job every day for all these years and decades? And the answer is it's never the same. It's always interesting, and you're helping people. And so, strictly speaking, no, there isn't one that stands out, but they all stand out. And that is a great thing about the business.
That's very interesting, Richard. You have worked on a lot of deals, and picking one or two from that is like it's a very difficult one. So next, I want to understand AI is a buzzword in the market. Like we're not talking about AI, but what are your top focus for 2026? You are working in retail and consumer sector, which is also a huge sector. Like I talk to a lot of clients who are coming from the same sector. So I want to understand like what are your top focus for 2026, and is there a particular reason for that?
Well, I wouldn't say that 2026 is different than any other year, because the nature of our business is that we sell our clients. The one of the fundamental needs in the business is continuing to develop new business, because you're always looking, you're trying to get clients to go through the pipeline, come out at the other end where the company gets sold. And so you need new clients all the time. And what I do, so I spend a fair amount of my time developing new business, and I do that by doing thought leadership. I do speaking. You mentioned earlier that I write for Forbes. I generally write 2 to 4 times a month about trends in consumer and retail, and all those things attract attention, give us credibility, and that's what we are looking for to develop new relationships that will lead to increasing business. You might think that one great way to do it is to look at all the deals you've done and say, where did that business come from? And then go and do that again. But they never come from the same place. They almost never come from the same place twice. So you have to be out in traffic, because there's no transparency to see who is a likely seller. And you do the best you can meeting people who can help you bring new business in. So that's something that I'm always focused on. We tend to move our focus to where consumers have gone. So for many years, we did a lot of work in fashion, and we've moved on to direct to consumer. We've moved into pet and beauty. We are currently we're hopefully completing transactions in both beauty and jewelry in the next couple of weeks. And so you go where consumer interest goes, because that's what capital follows. And so where consumers go, the money goes, and where we go. As far as AI goes, I think AI will change a lot of things, but both in our clients' businesses and in ours. I think it's a lot harder to implement than it sounds. I think that things like LLMs, like ChatGPT, are just the tip of the iceberg of it. And it's the most important aspect of that is it's going to take time. It's going to take a very long time to implement that. Part of that is that it's very early in the technology life cycle, but also because you can only implement that through people. And the industries we cover, consumer and retail, no one ever told me they came into consumer and retail so that they would be able to implement AI, or really to implement any new technology. So, there's a lot of resistance to the change that new technology brings. And it's a reordering of people's job function. And a lot of people are not flexible enough in the way they view their job to be able to adapt quickly. So it's going to take a long time before AI reaches its full potential, both in the investment banking business and in the industries we cover in consumer and retail.
Makes real sense considering where the market is moving right now. So are you using any AI or are you using any data tools to help your business mandates? Because I understand that you started your investment banking career probably with a book, like probably in a computer, or maybe like before that you might have a pen and paper, then computer, then floppy disk, then CD, then DVD. I'm sure that you have gone through the pager, fax, everything. So right now I want to understand, like in the modern world, how are you using the technology around you to help you boost the business?
The business, you're correct. When I started, the job was the work materials you needed were a pencil, a very large piece of paper where the term spreadsheet came from. It took up the whole desk, and a telephone. And those were all the work tools you had, and it was everything you needed. And we arrived to where we are today. What the technology has done to the business is enabled firms like ours, first of all, to exist, and second of all, to be able to play on an equal playing field. So, for example, the service that you offer, before it existed, people still needed the information. When I was a very young man, my job was to be you, to spend days and nights finding the information that we can all get from people like you at the touch of a button. And what's happened is in the past, you needed to pay the salaries of many young people like myself, like I was, in order to be able to have an investment banking firm. Well, that's not necessary anymore. So it enables people to be able to have firms like ours, where it's based strictly on the skill and experience you have in doing investment banking, and not necessarily on how big is your balance sheet, to be able to employ or identify and utilize the resources you need to get the information you have to have. Now, anybody can have that information, and it's strictly based on how good are you as a banker. And that's a more efficient world. And it enables us to have the kind of firm that we want to have. We've found over the last several years that we are increasingly outsourced, we're increasingly technology-based, and we're increasingly remotely situated. And that has enabled our skills to be front and center, as opposed to where we take people to lunch and how many young people we can produce in a meeting that will sit there doing spreadsheets. None of that is really important anymore. And that has created a real obstacle for young people wanting to enter the business. I'm sure everybody else you talk to gets the same thing I do, which is between 2 and 5 unsolicited inbound emails every day from young people who are looking for opportunities. There are just fewer entry-level opportunities because the technology has enabled people like us to be much more leveraged in terms of our time.
That's amazing, Richard. So as a continuation of that, so what is your advice to those people who are trying to get into the investment banking world, like young people who just came out of the college and looking to get into the banking environment? What's your piece of advice to them in the current context?
We never, in our firm's 20-year history, we never hired, I think once we hired somebody right out of college, but even then I'm not so sure. I think they had another offers. But and we did that because we let people we wanted people who went to the big firms, worked there for a couple of years, and got training from those firms that, went into formal training programs that we don't have. And then we benefited from the knowledge that they got. We hired them. We had to pay them more, but we didn't have to train them in the most basic parts of investment banking. And that's been a worthwhile strategy for us. So I don't really know the answer to your question, because you want to get, if you're a young person starting out, you want to get the best training that you can. And I know that in my own life, in the jobs or work that I've had and the business we get, nothing's more important to get that than tenacity and focus. So I'm sorry it's such a cliched answer, but I think it's cliched because it's true. And if you really want to be a banker, then, giving up or not giving up when the doors continue to be slammed in your face is the only way it's going to happen. Of course, it helps if you know people, but even that's not a guarantee. There just aren't as many opportunities that we see for opening positions as there used to be.
That's a great point and very insightful, Richard. So to my viewers, we were just talking to someone who is having a very rich experience of like 35 plus years into the banking world and who is writing in Forbes. So thanks a lot, Richard, for taking your time out and spending 30 minutes with us and sharing your wisdom with us. I wish you all the best and good luck.
Thanks so much for having me, and great questions, and love to chat anytime.
Thank you.